at all. And because of circumstances in my life, I found myself as a woman nobody wanted to be around. I was somebody that people looked the other way when I walked down the street. A harlot. Guilt and shame filled my days and my nights. I found nothing to look forward to. Believe me, I've tried so many times to try and find a way out, but it seemed that the world mocked me. They whispered behind my back. They had no compassion. I had no hope. But little did I know that my world was about to change. Everyone was talking about a prophet going along the countryside. He said that he could make the lame to walk and the blind to see, and I even heard that he raised the dead. I've never seen him, but I wanted to. But I knew that if he saw me, he would know what I was, who I was. But on this day, that began like so many others, I saw him. I saw Jesus. I was in the marketplace, and I could tell right away that something was happening. There was a large crowd, and it was just seemingly out of control. I tried to get closer, but I just couldn't. But something in me was telling me to get closer. I was looking around, and there's so many people in the way. Then, I saw a crowd. There was a woman to the front. They stood right before Jesus. The crowd was accusing her of committing adultery. My heart went out to her. You could tell that the crowd wanted to stone her. But then Jesus, he began to write something on the ground. Would he do as the law commanded? But no, Jesus, he simply said, "He that is without sin, let him cast the first stone." And I watched in amazement as the crowd began to dissolve. And then she stood alone before the Lord. And he looked at her with a look of pure love, and he asked her, "Woman, where are thine accusers?" And she spoke so softly, I couldn't even hear her words. But I did hear the words of Jesus. And he said, "Neither do I accuse you. Go and sin no more." And in that moment, a thought came to me. He is more than just a prophet. He is the Messiah, and he can forgive sins. Maybe there's hope for me. Maybe he can change me. But before I could move closer, I saw him. He looked at me. I saw the love in his eyes, and I couldn't move. My heart burned in my chest. I had to see this Jesus again. I had to let him know that I loved him, and I wanted to thank him, and I believed in him. I watched as Jesus and a few others began to leave the marketplace, and they went into a house. Someone said the house belonged to a Pharisee by the name of Simon. I stood back as I didn't want to cause a disturbance. They gathered around the table for a meal. I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but Simon didn't ask his servants to wash the feet of his guests. Where were this man's manners? It seemed to me that Simon didn't really care for Jesus at all. He just wanted to boast to all of his rich friends that Jesus ate with them. I knew then that despite what I was and what I had done, I had to thank Jesus. I would show him I loved him. I would do what the host of this dinner would not do. I would wash his feet. I made my way down, and I stood before Jesus. I knelt before him.